This session is about writing at Amazon, something that's very close to my heart. A lot of you know that uh, Amazon is very famous for its writing culture, and it's especially very important for product managers. So about 1.5 years back, when I joined Amazon, on my first day, I asked my soon-to-be manager, what's one piece of advice you'd give me to be successful at Amazon? And he said, be very good at writing, because it's very hard to be a good product manager at Amazon if you're not a good writer. And that proved to be a very useful piece of advice. And I think that's not just applicable for PMs at Amazon, but I think it's applicable for product managers anywhere. And even if you're not in product management, I think it's writing is a very useful skill to have. So before we go into the session, I'll quickly introduce myself. Currently, I'm a senior product manager at Amazon. I joined Amazon about 1.5 years back. For about 1 year, I was with AWS. So I was part of AWS Marketplace team where I shipped some enterprise products for very large customers such as Disney, Citibank, Coinbase. Currently, I have moved to a new team where I'm building a new 0 to 1 product for a new initiative. You'll hear about it in the next few months. Prior to that, I had about more than 5 years of experience working with fast-growing Indian tech startups. This included companies like Paytm, Treebo, ChaiPoint, if you're aware of them. I completed my undergraduate from IIT Roorkee in 2012, and then I moved to US in 2018 to pursue my MBA from MIT Sloan. And when I was in business school, so during my time, even before I moved to US, I realized that I really enjoy building products and I wanted to be in product management. And during my time at MBA at MIT Sloan, I started looking for different companies to join for product roles during my full-time recruiting. And Amazon really excited me for multiple reasons, but one of the big reasons was that Amazon is everywhere. If you think about it, there are very few companies in the world, probably it's just Amazon, which sells everything from groceries to storage and compute and cloud. Amazon is everywhere. There's Amazon.com, which sells everything under the sun. There's AWS, Amazon Advertising, which does a revenue of tens of billions of dollars just next to Facebook and Google. There's Amazon Halo, Amazon Care, Prime Video, music. It's literally everywhere. During my business school, I spent my summer in consulting, and I had a conversation with one of the partners at the firm, and the partner mentioned that, we do a lot of competitive analysis for many of our clients, Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies, and for almost all of those analysis, there's like one slide which is dedicated to Amazon. Either Amazon is already their direct competitor, or they're threatened. The whole industry or the market leaders are threatened that Amazon can enter into that industry. And when I was in business school, I was very curious, like how is Amazon able to do that? What does Amazon do? Like, it picks up an industry which it has no idea or background in, and then enters into that industry and just become wildly successful there. So I really wanted to find that out. I knew it was doing something right, and that was one of the reasons I decided to join Amazon. And not just this, like Amazon still continues to innovate. This is an image from an event that Amazon Devices team did last fall, where it released a whole lot of new innovative features, new innovative products. So this is the image of Amazon Astro. It's like a home robot. This is Amazon Glow here on the top left corner, which is a way for children to connect with their caregivers in a remote setting. It introduced like a flying robot for surveillance on your bottom right. So it does like a whole bunch of innovations, and it releases so many innovative products month after month, year after year, in all different kind of industries. And so I've always been fascinated by what is Amazon doing right. And it was only after I joined Amazon that I realized what was its secret recipe. There are a bunch of things. One is its leadership principles. I don't know if you have heard about Amazon's leadership principles. It has 16 leadership principles. They added 2 last year. Before that, it was 14. So these leadership principles are like our customer obsession, inventing and simplifying, diving deep. And a lot of companies have defined these kind of leadership principles or values for themselves, but I have not seen the kind of adherence anywhere else than I've seen it on Amazon, almost on a daily basis. Like in your daily conversations, one or the other leadership principles keep coming in. There's everyone, when people talk about customer obsession, every single person is actually obsessed with customers. Like it's part of all your conversations. Everything that you do or everything you talk about, you or your peers bring that lens in. So I think that's one of the reasons that Amazon is able to stay focused on delivering innovative ideas and continuing to do things in a great way even at this scale. The other big thing of what makes Amazon successful is it has certain mechanisms. It has defined few things that it does in a somewhat different way than a lot of other companies does. So example of the mechanisms would be one mechanism is working backwards, where you start thinking about a problem from the customer. Like even if you have to enter into a new industry, you don't do any kind of business analysis, market analysis. You don't do sales projection. You just start with the customers. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that after a few slides. But that's a mechanism that makes Amazon so successful. Another mechanism is how Amazon compensates its employees. So Amazon has like a cap on the base salary, and after that, it's all just or stocks. So your incentives, your financial incentives are aligned with the financial incentives of the company. So if company is doing well, you'd be making more money. And this becomes pretty real. Like after you hit that base salary layer, which is not really that high, it just becomes very, very real. So you're always thinking about, hey, is Amazon doing good as a company? And how can I contribute so that your financial incentives, your financial compensation is also high? And there are similar other mechanisms, like there's a special way it does its weekly business review, monthly business reviews, annual planning. But one secret ingredient, which kind of people know but underestimate, is writing. It's kind of hard to overstate like how important writing is for Amazon's success. Writing well enables Amazon to manage such a large business across thousands of employees in so many different countries, such a spread out business, and while still continuing to innovate, while still continuing to enter into different industries. And yeah, I mean, like only after I got in here, I realized like, hey, writing is everywhere. And to be successful at Amazon, you have to be good at writing. And why is that the case? And the reason for that's pretty simple, because clear writing is equal to clear thinking. Only when you write clearly, you can only write clearly when you're thinking clearly. And your quality of thoughts is going to determine your quality of decisions. And that's going to determine the quality of outcomes and the impact that you're going to have. You as an individual, your team, Amazon, or like whichever company you're part of, on the whole, is whatever you're going to do, the impact that you're going to have will be determined by the quality of decisions you make, which is what thinking is all about. And writing is a very important tool in your arsenal, a weapon in your arsenal to help you achieve that. So Jeff Bezos says this in this quote here, that full sentences are harder to write. They have verbs, paragraphs, and top paragraphs. Paragraphs have topic sentences. There's no way to write a 6-page narratively structured memo and not have clear thinking. Writing good is hard. It's a lot of work. It's much easier to build and create a presentation. And by the way, like in Amazon, the presentations, you don't do presentations. Amazon has a very different style of conducting meetings. So you'll start a meeting. If it's a 1-hour meeting, first 20, 30 minutes, someone's going to bring a doc and everyone reads it in complete silence. They're just jotting down notes, comments, and questions. And then after that, the whole debate opens up. And it's a very different way of working than at least than anywhere else that I have been. in the beginning, it's little weird, it's a little peculiar, but now I can't think of any other way of doing work. So Amazon does that to you. But in essence, writing is hard and it involves a lot of effort. So I'll get to some kind of docs that product managers write at Amazon and how they align different teams, drive decisions, and bring out new product to markets. They do it using a bunch of docs, type of docs, which are pretty popular at Amazon. And I'm going to cover a couple of them here. But I'll give you an overview of some high-level docs that we write. So first one is like the PR FAQ. I don't know if you have heard about this. A lot of other companies have started adopting the PR FAQ and the 6-page narrative standards of writing. But a PR FAQ is generally, it's like a 1-page press release along with some FAQs, and it's the core of how Amazon evaluates new ideas. It's what a product manager does. Most of the time, a PR FAQ would be written by a product manager. A product manager comes up with an idea. It writes a 1-page press release and along with some FAQs and take it to the leadership. And from there, the leadership decides whether to invest in it or not. 6-page narratives. These are like memos. It can be used for a variety of purposes, for driving strategy, for making some critical decisions, driving alignments between different teams, even for promotions. So the 6-page narrative is really, really the cornerstone of like how documents are written within Amazon. But then there are other kinds of docs, lighter weight docs, like correction of error doc. This is a very important mechanism within Amazon where you do root cause analysis and you figure out like what mistakes you did and fix them at the root. Then there are decision docs where you evaluate multiple different options, evaluate their trade-offs, and arrive at a decision which is complex and non-obvious. There are escalation docs. In Amazon, escalation does not have a negative connotation. So a lot of times you'd be working with different teams and you would be at loggerheads with each other. You'd not, you're not able to negotiate or come to a decision, and it's expected, it's actually encouraged that you quickly escalate it to the leadership. And at that time, you and the other person who you have a conflict with, you kind of both collaborate together and write a doc, which is called an escalation doc. Then there's a promotion doc. Like if you have to get promoted, your manager writes a 6-page doc for you where he or she talks about like why this person has to be promoted. So he or she will gather all your past achievements, accomplishment, everything that you have done, and will present a story of like, hey, why this person needs a promotion. And then there are other kind of docs like OP1 and OP2 for annual planning. And then there is like business review docs, which we call WBR, which is weekly business review. MBR is monthly business review, and QBR is quarterly business review. They have a very specific format. But I'm going to focus on 2 kind of docs here that we write. And after these, I'm going to spend some time on some tips from my experience of writing documents at Amazon that you can apply in your daily life as a product manager. So I'm going to talk about these 2 kind of docs here, the PR FAQ and 6-page narratives. So start with PR FAQ. PR FAQ is the core of Amazon's working backward philosophy. It's how Amazon does all of its innovations. Every single product, every single business that you see that Amazon has, which is generating billions of dollars of revenues, started with a PR FAQ doc who someone had written. So for example, for AWS, which is more than $60 billion of annual revenue today, Andy Jassy wrote a PR FAQ and got it approved from Jeff Bezos. He had to go through 30, 40 iterations of it. But every single thing that Amazon launches starts with a product manager or someone, it's likely a product manager, but it can be anyone else, writing a PR FAQ. And that is the core of how Amazon innovates. And the reason it's called working backwards is because it's really kind of flipping the whole process around. So what will typically happen in a large company? In a large company, or any company, a lot of times what happens is that the companies decide like, hey, our target should be that we should grow by 20% or 25% next year. Now, how can we do that? We can acquire a new company. We can grow our existing revenues. We can get into new markets. Let's say we want to get into new markets. So we'll look for different adjacent markets. We'll figure out which is a fast growing market, which is a market with less entrants. And then we'll focus on that market. And then we'll say like, okay, what can we do in this market? We'll go and do some market research. We'll come up with an idea, launch a product, and then at the end, do some marketing. And at the end, launch a press release, publish it in newspapers, magazines, or websites. At Amazon, this process is completely flipped around. So you start with writing a press release on the first day. You don't have any idea about anything, whether this business will work, whether the unit economics will work. But you start by writing a one-page press release on how it will look like at the day of the launch. And this press release, of course, it comes with some FAQs. So this have like 3 sections. The first is like just a one-page PR, which very crisply describe what the customer problem is, what is the solution, and some fictional customer quotes and some fictional quotes by Amazon leaders. And you then have 3 or 5 pages of FAQs which describe the solution in a little bit more detail. And Amazon has certain standard FAQs which help you think about these solutions and stay focused on the customer. For example, one FAQ that we generally write in these PR FAQs is like, what would someone sitting next to the table at lunch would talk about this launch? Or one FAQ would be like, what would customers be most excited about this feature? And similarly, what would the customers be most disappointed about this feature? So these kind of FAQs help you think about the solution in a little bit more detail. And then in the appendix section, you'll have some mock, some wireframes, any kind of visuals. But notice here that in this PR FAQ, there's no mention of the financials, of profitability, of unit economics, of how big this can be. None of that. All of that comes eventually, but it all starts with the customer and the problem. So for example, Amazon doesn't think like that, hey, you know what, healthcare is a huge industry or fintech is a huge industry, let's get into it. No, it'll say like, okay, there's a group of people somewhere, they have a problem, let's talk about that. Who are these people? What is their problem? And what can we do to solve them? And then let's see how it grows from there. So that's really the approach that the PR FAQ process emphasizes. And what happens is then you write like a PR. So for example, I'm a product manager and I've been in this space, in whatever space I am for some time, and I have been talking to customers. I've been observing the industry, and I come up with this idea that, hey, I see a problem and I think like, hey, there's an idea. So let me kind of float it around. So what I'll do is I'll just probably talk to my manager or just inform someone and say that, hey, I'm planning to write a simple PR FAQ for to talk about this problem and a solution I have in mind. So you go back, you just write like a simple one-pager document, one-page press release, add few FAQs, and then you take it to your peers, people in your engineering team, design team, your leadership, your manager, and then you get their review. You get a feedback from them. And it's a very, very iterative process. And then they'll give you their feedback. They'll poke holes in your thinking process, and then you can go back and get more data and refine it. So it's a very, very iterative process. And as you're talking to other people, as you're showing this doc to everyone, they're trying to answer a couple of these questions. The 3 most important one is that, does it address an acute customer need? Now, a lot of time, customers have a lot of problem, but it's not always a very acute problem. And we're trying to think about an acute customer problem, something where customer is kind of grasping for air to solve. They are doing all kinds of workarounds and they're very frustrated. And a lot of times customer even don't realize that they have this problem. So you have to identify that. Like nobody was asking Amazon, or customers were not asking Amazon to build a voice assistant, which is Alexa, but the problems existed. They were doing a lot of things manually in a frustrating, which was frustrating them. So you talk about who's the customer, do they have an acute need or an acute problem? And then you try to answer like, can this problem be solved in a very differentiated way from the solution which I'm proposing? Is there something that Amazon can do differently? When Amazon launched Amazon advertising, uh, it realized like it has a lot of data about shoppers' shopping preferences. Shoppers are coming on Amazon. You go to Amazon.com. You have a history of things that you have purchased in past. Amazon knows what kind of searches you are doing. So Amazon has a pretty good idea about what are your preferences, what kind of things you like, what kind of, let's say, category of product, what kind of apparels you like. So Amazon had this idea, this very big differentiation, and it felt that it can offer a very differentiated product to advertisers, and that was the basis on which whole Amazon advertising was built. Now it's a tens of billions of dollars of revenue business. And the final question that everyone's trying to assess from that PR FAQ is that if it's successful, how big it can be. Amazon does hundreds of billions of dollars in revenue every year. And people get excited when something can become like multi-billion-dollar enterprise in future. But that's not the most important question. I've been in multiple PR FAQ reviews with many leaders, very higher up leaders as well. And it's always kind of all the discussion always comes around the first 2 points. Like either the problem is not understood correctly, or it's not a very acute pain point, or the solution we are talking about is not differentiated enough. It's not ambitious enough. We're not thinking big. So the leaders, push us back to kind of think about a more ambitious solution. Just kind of go and like imagine, open your eyes and try to imagine a solution which even though if it feels really impossible in the moment, but like if it's very inspiring, we are gonna back you up. So that's PR FAQ. For you as a product manager, your company, whatever organization you're part of, some organizations have a similar process to PR FAQ or not, but even if they don't have, a very useful framework that you can follow, a doc that you can write, is a 5Q doc. And a lot of times, even before you start writing a PR FAQ, you generally start with a 5Q doc. Sometimes I have done that in my past. And it's a very, very useful doc to clarify your thinking. And I'll give you an example from my past experience of how it clarified my thinking. So you try to answer 5 questions here. Who is the customer? What is the customer problem or opportunity? What is the most important customer benefit? How do you know customer want or need? And what does the ideal customer experience look like for your solution? And if you notice, like the first 4 out of 5 questions are all about the customer and their problem. Only towards the end, we start thinking about like what that solution is. I'll give you an example of a feature that I was launching last year, and writing this doc really helped me clarify my thinking and ship out a successful product. I was part of AWS Marketplace, and we have a lot of sellers who manage their listings, their software listings. And once they have their listings up on the website, they have to make some changes from time to time. Like they have to add new versions, they have to change the product description, they have to change pricing. And so this was a very manual process. They'd submit a request for a change. It will take 3 to 4 days for that request to go through. And I was proposing a feature which will automate this process. And so I wrote this 5Q doc. And in the first section itself, like who's the customer, I wrote like, hey, these are like small businesses, or like generally some businesses of some size. And, they have X number of listings on average, and they update their listing at this frequency. I just threw in some data. And I took this doc and I reviewed it for some of my peers, some of the other product managers. And they started poking holes in my thinking and say like, okay, you've told us like who this customer is, you've thrown some data, but like who this person really is, like what does he do in this company? Is this just one person? Are there multiple people here? What they're doing, is it part of their job responsibility? It is something outside there. And the customer problem that you have identified, the delay of 3 to 4 days, is it the most important problem that they are facing? What are the other problems they are facing? And I did not have answers to those questions. And that's what pushed me to kind of go back, talk to these customers, understand really who they are and what their problem was. And once I did that, I realized like, yes, that delay of 3 to 4 days was a problem for them, but even more painful thing for them was doing a sequence of manual steps. And that was then I realized that this is a bigger problem to address, and anything that we build has to kind of solve for that. So writing this doc and reviewing it with my peers helped me think more clearly and helped me build a product that was much more useful to our customers. And this is something that you can start doing in your jobs, in your roles, whichever company you're part of. I'll jump now to the 6-page narrative. Now that's another very popular kind of document that's written in Amazon. And there are a few things about 6-page narrative. The first is that it's generally more than 6 pages. A lot of times it goes up to even 40 or 50 pages. 6 pages is what everyone just reads. The rest of the pages are all appendixes, and like there are additional questions, and then there are charts and graphs and wireframes and those kind of things. So it's a pretty big doc. It's not just 6 pages, and it takes a lot of time to put it together. It's written for multiple purposes, setting up long-term strategy, setting the product vision, arriving at a hard decision. And as I mentioned, like even for promoting a team member, it's a general structure document, which is used for a lot of purposes. The key thing to understand about this is that it's an iterative process, and it takes many days, weeks, or months, and it involves many, many stakeholders. I'll quickly go over the general structure of how this narrative is created, and I'll walk you through an example. So first you write like the purpose and goal of the doc. Second, you talk about tenets. So tenets are certain guiding principles that help you make trade-off decisions. I'll show you what I mean by them in one of the next slides. Then you have a details and diagnosis of the situation. Whatever you're talking about, like first you give a snapshot of where things are right now. The next part is where you want to go, and what are the existing gaps. And then some recommendations based on your analysis and the tenets that you had established on what action should we do. And then kind of what's the implementation plan. And then you have appendices. So this is just general structure. You don't have to follow it to the T. You're flexible in how you want to put it together, but this is a general structure that's fairly helpful. I'll walk you through an example of how a 6-pager narrative looks like. So this is an example from a blog called Anatomy of Amazon 6-pager, highly recommended. You can search it, and I have also linked the URL here at the bottom. And in this blog post, this person who has been in Amazon in past writes a sample 6-pager document. And I'll walk you through like, what does this look like? So this is first section, which is the introduction, which is like just telling what is the purpose of this doc? Why are we writing this doc in the first place? It just sets the context. And it's important to do it keeping the reader in mind. A lot of people who is going to read this document will have almost zero context about the business problem. So you have to write it in a way that is easy for anyone to understand. The next part is goals. You establish whatever you are doing. What is the goal of, what are the big high level metrics or the goals you are tracking? Look at this example here. In this doc, the person has established 3 very clear goals. For example, increase stability, reduce the total number of active GitHub issues from 100 to 25 by end of December 2020. It's a very quantified, very specific goal. And this makes the discussion a lot more crisp. This makes the document a lot more focused. The next part is tenets. So tenets is something that helps you in making decision very, very fast. So you establish certain guiding principles. Like for example, in this tenet, this team has established a tenet quality over quantity, which means that they're going to release high quality features, even if it's taking some time. In another context, you can have a different tenet, which is like speed over not quality, but like something like speed over perfection, right? Like which says that, hey, we are in a different business context. We need to ship out features really fast. Or they have another tenet called organic trumps paid, which means like, even though paid advertising is really effective, we are still going to invest in organic channels. And you establish these tenets because it'll help you make decisions, and it'll help guide the it'll help guide how you are what kind of features you're going to build and what kind of decisions you're going to make. And then you do the diagnosis, which is just a snapshot of how the business is done. Look at all the sentences, they're pretty data driven, and I'm going to come in the last section like how you can be more specific as well. Finally, the next part is like the strategic priorities, or where we are right now and where we need to go. And based on the diagnosis you have done, you have certain kind of recommendations following the tenets that you have. Cool. So I'll just wrap it up here, and in interest of time, I can come around the 6-page narrative or PR FAQ later. But I do want to spend some time, around 5-7 minutes, on some tips for you to write well, which are going to help you in whatever kind of document you write in your product management career. So first step, focus on the readers. It's a very basic point, but it's a very important point. Know who your reader is. Is it a leader at a company? Is it like a VP? Is it the CEO? How much context that person has? Is it a technical team that's reading your doc? What do they want to get out of this document? At the end of the day, you're writing these docs to arrive at a decision, to set the direction, to align everyone. So understand who you're writing for, and what's their level of understanding, and what's their expectation. What do they want to really do when they read this doc? Second, be specific. You see a picture of a weasel here. It's called in Amazon, there's this term we use, which is weasel words. And weasel words are, I don't know why they're called weasel, but words which are vague, which creates ambiguity and do not add a lot of value. They're words like should, might, could, often, generally, many, faster, slower, higher, these kind of words. And when you write documents, you want to avoid these words because they don't help you in any kind of clear thinking. So I'll give you an example of that. Read the sentence. Probably, you're a product manager, you're sending an update, or you're writing a memo, and you write something like, many customers are asking for this new feature. Also, we believe this can be a huge opportunity for us to grow in a new market. Therefore, we should prioritize it on our roadmap. Now, this is not specific at all. What do you mean by many customers? What do you mean by a huge opportunity? And what's this whole thing around prioritizing it on our roadmap? A better way to be more specific is to say something like, hey, 30 plus customers, including Disney and Coinbase, have expressed interest in new payment feature. Based on a quick estimation, this can be a $500 million revenue opportunity for us in the next 5 years, with projected growth of 27% year over year. Therefore, we should prioritize it over checkout feature and the next quarter with the aim to deliver by Q3 2022. So it's a much more specific sentence. It does not contain many weasel words. And this is a kind of sentence that also forces you to think more clearly and think more deeply about what you want to say. Another example, this new feature provides a significantly better experience over anything that's out there. What does this mean? What does significantly better mean? A kind of statement that I've read or hear very often is, this new feature provides a 10x better experience over anything that's out there. Like just putting a number 10x instead of significantly doesn't make it any less vague. A better way to frame this would be, this new feature is better than competitive offering because it provides 1, automated notifications, 2, fraud check, 3, 2x more payment options, and 4, cleaner UI. Now here you're telling exactly how this feature is better than the other offerings. And you're not making any tall claims like it's 10x better or significantly better. You are just stating facts as they are and let others decide what it means for them. Cool. The third tip is be concise. Now this is a very long kind of sentence. I'll quickly read it. It's it's imagine like you are a product manager and giving an update, and it reads something like, we talked to 50 customers in last 1 month. While many customers are happy with our current offerings, our largest customers are looking for other solution providers. One key area of a complaint was lack of good reports that can be easily analyzed. We earlier did not build reporting features because we wanted to focus on our core offerings first. However, many of these large customers will likely choose other solutions and not renew the contract if we do not improve our reporting. Therefore, we will build 4 new features in the next quarter to address major gaps in reporting. Very long-winded way of saying this. And much concise way of how you can say all of this is, based on feedback from 50 plus customers, we have decided to release 4 new reporting features in the coming quarter. The audience, the listeners probably don't need to hear about all the background. They just need to hear about what did you did. We talked to 50 customers, and based on that, we made certain decision. So being concise is important because it also sharpens your thinking. But just being concise, we're missing out some things. So that's not enough. We need to have something more. And the thing that we want to have more is, tell me why this matters. So going back to the previous example, you said like, based on feedback from 50 plus customers, we have decided to release 4 new reporting features in the coming quarter. Tell me why it matters. A better way to write is that, based on feedback from 50 plus customers, we have decided to release 4 new reporting features in the coming quarter to address their biggest pain point and mitigate their risk of churn. Because if we build these features, we'll address their biggest pain point and we'll mitigate them churning out. So this is a complete sentence, a more concise way of saying the thing that you said in a very long-winded way. And the reason it's important to be concise, it's important to tell what matters, is because it'll clear your thinking it'll make you focus on exactly what you want to say. And my final tip is practice and iterate. Good writing takes multiple drafts, many edits, re-edits to write something persuasively. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of effort. So bake that into your plan, bake that all that time whenever you're thinking about writing something. Write an early draft and get it reviewed for early feedback and having a discussion. It creates a lot of visibility and you will be able to solicit a lot of feedback. You'll be able to get a lot of ideas from your team members. And finally, remember that writing is a collaborative effort. It's not something that you do sitting, on an evening all by yourself in isolation and come up with a plan to change everything. It involves a lot of people, and it's mainly an exercise in improving your thinking, of sharpening it, of refining it, not just your thinking of your team members. So do a lot of iteration, do a lot of practice, and that's how you're going to improve. And as I close this, I'll recommend a few resources that you might find helpful. So these are a couple of books which helped me. One very highly recommended book is called Working Backwards, which will give you insights into how Amazon works. Writing is obviously a huge part of it. And Amazon Way. I read this book prior to my interviews from Amazon. It helped me understand what Amazon stands for. And the last one is Better Business Writing. So if you are inside Amazon, you'll have a lot of resources to learn how to write well, specifically how to write well in Amazon's context. But even outside that, I read this book, I read this guide a few years before coming to US, and it helped me write better emails, make even better presentations, even when I was working in India. So overall, a pretty good guide. And this very, very highly recommend all these 3 books. So I'll stop here and I will take any questions if you have. Feel free to raise hands or I can see the questions in the chat window.
Yeah, hi Amit, Chirashri this side.
Yeah, go ahead, Jashri.
So Amit, just wanted to check, basically like when we develop features, right, for a specific product. So in my organization, so we kind of give a lot of release notes as to, which for a specific product, you have to stated essentially what that feature is going to do. So many a times I've come into a situation wherein I've been told by my superiors that you kind of write very lengthy statements when it comes to all these features. So it's not so what they say is it doesn't depict your appropriate thinking, the line of thinking. So how do I ensure rather that my writing has to be very concise and crisp, which is specific to that feature which I'm delivering.
Sure. So when you say that the writing is lengthy, that those sentences are lengthy, is it like about when you are writing kind of PRDs, writing user stories, or is it like general narratives that you are writing?
It's basically when we are building, like basically we have in a year we have two releases. So when we are launching a release, so so from the documentation team we will have to guide the documentation team as to what features we are building in. So now when we have a set of features that we are building in, so as a product manager, I would have to state at a very high level what my feature is expected to do.
Right.
So I'm referring to that context.
Right. Sure. See, the general advice in terms of like writing concisely, the idea is like, you don't write concise, you don't write short sentences just for the sake of it. The idea is that, these sentences should not have a lot of fluffy words, weasel words, because what happens is when you are reading a very lengthy prose or lengthy sentence, the reader loses the focus from the point that you're trying to state, and the point that you're trying to state has to come across very sharply, very crisply. And the way it will happen is the best way to kind of write concisely is to do a lot of edits. Edit. You write something, but just don't share it in the first go. You write something, edit it, further edit it, and that's how you're going to shorten everything that you write till the time that it just comprises of its core essence. The other thing that you can follow is try to eliminate weasel words. On the slide that I showed, try to eliminate words like should, more, higher, and try to exchange them with clear, quantifiable data points. Like when you say like, hey, very few customers are asking for this. Tell me how many customers are asking for this. Or, there's a good probability that customers will adopt this feature. Give me a number, like 6 out of 10 customers are saying that they'll adopt this feature. So when you have these specific points instead of these weasel words, that's going to help you shorten that sentences even further.
Thanks, Amit.
I see Aboli and Vikas has raised their hands. Aboli, you want to go first?
Yes. Hi, Amit. Thank you for this talk. It was really insightful. I had two questions, actually. So the first question was in a smaller company where I work, for example, like a startup, I find that I'm often writing documents with a dearth of information. Like I don't necessarily have the numbers to back up everything that I'm putting in that document. So I was curious if you have any tips for writing in that context, and like how much, because I want to avoid using weasel words, like you said, but like what can you do about it basically in such situations?
Right. So it depends on exactly what you're writing about. You don't have to produce data when you don't have data. What helps, especially in making decision, is what I mentioned about tenets. Like if you had certain tenets where you define some guiding principles, that will help you. Like defining tenets upfront will kind of eliminate need for data in a lot of places. So for example, you say like, hey, we'll always prefer quality over quantity, right? Now, if you define that upfront, so in future, you don't need to kind of come up with a lot of data if you don't have it. You say that, hey, we don't have a lot of data right now, it's an ambiguous situation, but I'm going to fall back to my tenet that we're always going to prefer quality over quantity. So that's how you kind of, navigate that situation when you don't have a lot of data.
Got it. Awesome. And my second question is, so again, as a PM, there's a lot of things that we're supposed to do. So I was curious, how much of your time do you spend, like, let's say in a week, on writing specifically? Like, how does that split look for you?
That's a good question. The answer is it's hard to say that. So the writing is like writing a document, a good doc is not just about sitting in front of the computer like a Word doc and then just typing things. Writing is about doing a lot of research, going and meeting a lot of team members. So for example, if I'm writing a doc and I want to pull out some data or I want to get an opinion, sometimes I've written something and I want to gain an alignment with someone, like even before I kind of put it out there. So I'll have to meet a lot of people. Um, we do a lot of writing. I'd say like I would be presenting some kind of doc, maybe an early version of a bigger doc or like a smaller doc, 1-page doc, at least one doc in a week. And generally PMs write 2 to 3 PR FAQs or 2 to 3 narratives in a year, because each one take many months. In all, like the way to kind of think about it is like, 30 to 40% of your time, it kind of keeps changing, but 30 to 40% of your time you're thinking about strategy or defining feature, sometimes 50% of the time. So all of that kind of falls into the doc writing bucket, because the end outcome is a doc. And then 30, 40, and then 50, 60% time you're doing execution.
Understood. That makes sense. Awesome. Thank you.
Cool. Vikas, I see that you have raised your hand.
Yeah, hi, Amit. Thanks for the insightful session. So I just wanted to know about how you write PRD in the Amazon. Like, what is the process of writing PRD? Did you get any document from business, and then you convert this BRD, that is business requirement document, with the help of design team in PRD? Like, how you write? Could you please give some light on this?
Yeah, you don't get any requirements from anyone. Like as a product manager, especially in Amazon, you have a pretty wide scope. You go out, you discover a hard customer problem, you figure out an opportunity, you write a PR FAQ, get approval for it, get funding for it, and then when it comes to actually handing over more specific details to the engineering team or the design team, you write a PRD or a BRD. And what I've seen in my experience is that Amazon is very decentralized, and every team or every organization has a different structure of how they write. The current team that I'm on writes it in like user story format. So you'll define like, hey, as a customer, I want to do this step, and then this is the acceptance criteria. A pretty standard format if you look online for that. And different teams follow different structures. This is the one that I am currently following in my team.
Okay, cool. So my next question is like, so what I know that PRD is a dynamic document. It's not a static document.
Right.
So how frequently, like after when you write a PRD and hand it over to design, so is there any chance in which you modify this template with the help of the UX team? Maybe UX team comes up with a different user scenario, or engineering team comes up with a different user scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. Like as you said, it's a dynamic document and it's a very iterative doc. And most of the documents that you write, nothing is set in stone. Like even if something like you do a proper handoff to engineering, or if a document has been approved by leadership, as you go on doing the implementation, you encounter that you'll have to make some tweaks. And so you make it, as the project goes on, and everybody understands it, everybody's okay with it. So nothing is set in stone.
Good. Thanks, Amit, for the answer.
Thank you. Devesh.
Hey, hi. So my question was similar to the lines of what Aboli asked, that in the initial part, when you don't really have data and you're trying to make that 6-page document, especially when setting goals, when you showed us that Amazon 6-page doc, the sample one, it was very specific that I think I saw some numbers, something like 63% we want to increase. So let's say while doing, while releasing a new feature, it is to promote some engagement, and we made that out. So how do we come up with that? Because goal setting is something which is very initial. And while doing that, I can realize, yes, the goal of my feature is to increase engagement. And I can sort of understand that engagement has to increase a lot, or it has to increase. I mean, I can think of that, but how will that estimation be done that, I need to drive increase it by 263% or something. What kind of processes do you follow to get to that number while goal setting, especially?
Right. So I think the example that I showed, that was a fairly, I'd say, established or a mature business line where you have a lot of customers, you have a lot of data. And when you have a lot of data, you can project, you see what the historic growth rates have been, you see what your current customer base has been. This is a goal setting exercise that you do with your finance teams or marketing teams, and you figure out like, hey, based on our existing trajectory, we might be growing 50% year over year, but let's kind of extend it. Let's kind of make it a little bit more challenging. And there, it's all kind of based on certain educated guesses, right? Like you say, like, okay, if we, let's say, do release more features, or if we spend more money on marketing, we might be able to increase it by 15%. So let's add that 15% to this. So when you have a lot of data, that's how you kind of decide the goals. When you don't have a lot of data, when, for example, right now I'm in a newer initiative, we don't have any customers yet, we are still building things out, we have very different kind of goals. And we focus more on the input metrics, right? Like the input metrics would be that the goal would then shift to that, hey, we want to launch this product by end of this year. That's kind of the goal. And we want to, and we'll make that quantifiable, that we'll say like, hey, we'll launch that, the product by end of this year. We will be doing 7 marketing activities and spending $10 million on marketing by September. We'll lock in 5 partnership deals with these different teams, something like that. And your focus kind of shift to the input metrics, things you can control. And as the business grows, as you start getting more customers, you start thinking about like, okay, now what are the other things that we can control? Do we have control on like now user growth rate? If users have started using the product but they're not liking it, then you start measuring it using some CSAT or NPS score, and then you'll focus your attention there. So it really depends on what context and where you are in the product life cycle, and that's how you set those goals. Does that answer that question?
Yeah. Okay, that answers it pretty well. Thank you so much. One more question, along a pretty different line. It's regarding careers at Amazon. So when you join as a PM, you join at a particular team and for a particular role. But
Right.
like you said, that you have a lot of scope in deciding what kind of feature you should launch or what kind of product you would want to pitch to people. So when does that part usually happen? Because if you're hired for a particular role and a particular thing, you must be working on that, right? Is it after that project ends, you sort of think that, maybe this is something new that I can do, and then you sort of come up with that for your new project? Does that go along in that direction?
Yeah, so it's really variable. It depends on what, like product management is not a very, it can be a very flexible job. And so to give you a sense, like, when I joined my first team, we knew that we wanted to launch some features. We knew what the problem was. We knew a high level understanding of what the problem was. And so my job at that time was to come up with a good set of solution, validate the problem in the right way. This team that I have joined, it's much more ambiguous. We don't even know what we have to build. We are still not clear. In some small ways, we are not clear, like what even is the opportunity area. So probably even before I start writing any PR FAQ, I'll kind of write a vision document or do an analysis of the whole scope, like write a 6-page narrative. And in a lot of cases, what will happen is you'll join a team where you are working on an existing roadmap. You'll be shipping existing feature, and then you spend like 6 months, 1 year into that problem area. You'll talk to customers and you'll figure out that, hey, there are more problems that we can solve. And there's this newer opportunity that, that we can address. So you'll start focusing your attention there. And then you'll say that, okay, after about 6 months, 9 months or 1 year, and you say, okay, this is something that I'm thinking about right now. And maybe now is the time I go ahead and start writing a PR FAQ. Most of the time it's related to your domain area, but sometimes you have an idea that's completely different, and then that's also fine. Sometimes you can pitch that idea to another team in Amazon and say, hey, I have this idea, and if it kind of works out, the other team say like, hey, that's great, maybe come join my team and then write this PR FAQ and like take this feature to conclusion.
Right. Got it. Thanks for that. Thank you.
Cool. Great. We are at time, but I'm okay to stay for another 5 to 10 minutes and answer any queries, or up to 10 to 15 minutes is also okay. See, Chandrakant.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. My question is more related to the non-functional side of things. You did mention that sometimes you write the requirements in terms of user stories. So how often you add the non-functional part of it, and how specific it is when you state the requirements?
When you say non-functional, is it like things like latency, operational metrics, those kind of things?
Yes, latency, how much number of users you expect, and how much you expect a system to support for next 2 years in terms of scalability.
Right.
Yeah, and all that stuff.
Right. So a lot of times it really varies from team to team. It depends on the product, on how important something is, latency is kind of for that product experience. It's important for a lot of products, but in some products it's very important. So for example, when I was in AWS, we launched an API, and at that time I had to kind of give more specification around what the TPS should be like, and another system, what the latency should be like. In the new experience, those features were more focused towards developers. In the new initiative I'm working on, there's much less focus there. I'm focused, it's a non-developer persona, so I'm much more focused around their immediate use cases. But and I've seen, like in my experience with the teams I've worked with, those kind of specifications, like the engineering teams take a lead on that in defining those. So it really varies. Like there's no kind of a clear answer on like who defines them. Sometimes you take a shot at defining them, but a lot of time engineering teams take a lead on that.
Okay, thank you. Just a follow-up question on that.
Yeah.
Similarly, let's just say when you launch a product which is very global in nature, rather than restricted to a specific geography. So from the compliance perspective, how do you make sure that you have covered all the aspects?
So you work with a lot of teams, you collaborate with the legal team. There are international, especially the legal teams. Then you also have business development teams who specialize in kind of expanding to other countries. If you have presence of an Amazon team in that country, you collaborate very closely with them. So yes, it does take kind of lot of work on your end, but there are structures in place you can follow.
Okay, thank you.
Amit, my question is related to this question. Is it okay if I ask?
Sure. Who is the speaker here? Sorry, I'm not able to.
My name is Utsav.
Okay, go ahead, Utsav.
Sure. So what Chandrakant asked was around how do you put the non-functional? Something related to that is that how do you ensure that engineering is kind of understanding it in the right way? I know one of the ways is through defining the acceptance criteria, but there might be several kind of intricacies, right? Around how the UI will look, where exactly the buttons will be placed, how the interactions will look, which always might not be covered in the user stories. So
Yeah.
Is it like you have a kind of a session with them to explain, or is it the engineering manager's responsibility? Please help me understand how does it work at Amazon.
Yeah, sure. So like specifically related to user experience and interactions, once you have, even before you hand anything off to engineering, you work very closely with the UX team, and then you come up with very detailed set of mocks, and you have, once those mocks are ready and you iterate over them, you, along with the UX team, does a handoff to engineering team, and then they'll go through all of those with you to figure out like all the details. So that's how it starts. But even during the course of implementation, you kind of closely work with the engineering team. The engineering team, sometimes the developers would come to you and say like, hey, I want to clarify this. You mentioned that this interaction should happen in this way, but the mocks is showing a different way, or like, we when we started implementing it, we encountered this issue. Can we think of a workaround here? So during that whole implementation process, you work very closely with the engineering team to kind of overcome any roadblocks or have or tweak anything that's kind of not well understood.
So that answers my question. Thanks.
Great. Pratik, seems you're next in queue.
Thanks a lot, Amit. Amit, it was a great presentation and great Q&A session as well. So my question was around on the strategy basis, where like my role in my organization is more on a on a strategy standpoint, where we need to understand customers' pain point and try to solve that. So I heard that you said that we try to create some goals in order to understand what exactly our quarterly roadmap should look like, and how we are trying to solve those problems. But what if we reach to a situation where you have kind of reached to a stability around your product, and any changes in your product which might solve your customer's pain point will cost you more than what he's ready to pay? So how you solve such problems, and assuming that if you want to grow in that market, what exactly would be your how say, what would be your strategy to grow in that market?
Well, I think it's a hard strategy question. It's not an easy question, and that's kind of what you are here to do. You are here to make some hard trade-off, hard choices. Yes. I mean, because it's a hard question, I can't answer it right now, or I don't even know all the context. But the general approach would be, as I said, like if it's a very big problem, or it's a major decision that has a huge implication, then a good thing to do, good practice within Amazon would be you start writing a doc around it. And this doc need not be just presenting your recommendation. This doc can also be for presenting all the trade-offs. You present all the trade-off, like, hey, we build this feature, we solve the customer problem, but this is the cost for doing that. But if we don't do this, this is the cost for that. And then you start saying like, hey, how does this align with our short-term kind of goals? How does it align with our longer-term vision? And a lot of times you might not have the answer, and nobody in the company would have the answer. So you'll have to take a bet. But what the doc would do is it'll give you a framework to kind of drive alignment and kind of start a discussion. I have written some docs, which these are like decision docs, where there's no straightforward answer. It's like a hard decision that you have to make, but then you take it all the way up to leadership, and everyone in that whole chain kind of comes together and decide like, okay, this is the direction we are choosing. We know the trade-offs, but we are okay with these trade-offs. And as a company, as a team together, we're making this bet. So that's what generally happens. And I don't know the answer to your specific question, but that would be the approach that I'll follow if I encounter a situation like that.
No, indeed. Sorry if my question was not clear enough. I kind of understood the process on how to get through that trade-off. My question was around the strategy, where the trade-off. Your leadership understands that your ROI is not enough, and
right.
But you want to grow in the market, right? You are trying to fetch a new dollar, right? And in order to get that new bill, you need to reach to the customer in some or other way. So the one way is to expand your existing solution or find out a new one or a new arena. But a new arena, you are not good enough. You don't have expertise to do that. But in your arena, you're master, you're leader. So again, reiterating my question, what would be your strategy to cater this problem?
Very hard to say, like, because it's very specific to your situation. But I'd say like, it depends a lot on your it'll come down to your company and the vision and company's principles. So for example, one of the things that happens in Amazon, like one of the thing is a focus on long term, right? And long term, Amazon says that if something is important for us and if we feel that something is worth doing, we are ready to take short term losses. We are ready to be even misunderstood for a long time, right? Like and but that's very specific to Amazon. That might not be true for your company. So it really depends on that situation. I have seen in past, like if you are asking about my particular inclination within Amazon, if you have a very solid rationale for why we should follow a strategy, even though it's painful in the short term, but if it'll have good longer term consequences, chances are that we'll take that path, even if it doesn't look obvious.
Indeed, indeed. So, a follow-up question on that, and how you identify. So, assuming that you identified a long-term significance to a specific investment, how you identify that path? Like, I understand that you write your trade-off documents about the pros and cons of any path you move on, but assuming that. You chose one path which says that, okay, you know what, I don't want to go ahead and expand this feature anymore. I want to tap in new market because I feel, it's my gut feeling that getting into this new area might be challenging, might be a competition, a bigger competition, and it could be a riskier one, but I would still want to go in that because that might be a risk on a short time, but it would be a good challenge for a longer, and it would be a good investment for a longer duration. So assuming that's the path you are going ahead with, how you what analysis would you do to make sure that your path is well educated and your risk is quite quantified with all the parameters you have considered? So what parameters would you really look for?
Most important parameter, and we'll go back, like, is customers. Even when you're thinking about the long-term bet that you're making, you think about, like, is this are we, when we are taking this long-term bet into a new market, are we still solving a big enough customer problem? Is it a very acute customer problem that we are solving? And are we solving it in a differentiated way? You answer these qualitative questions first. Only once you're convinced, you'll bring in the numbers. You'll say, okay, you know what, this is a big problem for these customers and we can solve it in a big way. Now let's do some analysis of what these revenue projections would look like. So that's something that's very specific to Amazon because it has this whole focus on the customers. So in any kind of analysis you'll do, any kind of recommendation that you create, like the customer focus will be the centerpiece.
Got it. Thanks a lot, Amit. It was certainly a nice way to look at it. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a different way from how a lot of other companies would do, but that's I think
I understand
that's Amazon's
that.
secret sauce. Yeah,
of course, and totally understand. As you said, that every problem has its own perspective, has its own ways to solve it. So I agree with you.
Sure, cool. I see Sudhindra next in the queue.
Hey, bud. Thanks for the session today. Are you able to hear me?
Sudhindra, your voice is not very clear.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yeah, much better.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was saying thanks for the session today. It was quite insightful. I have two questions and one slightly off the core topic. The first question is, you talked about getting the feedback from customers, right? I've heard before as well that Amazon does a lot of A/B testing for hypothesis and so on, but how do you really get feedback from the customers?
Yeah, there are a lot of ways to do that. And it really depends on the products. So in some products, you can do A/B testing, especially products where there's a lot of data and there's a lot of traffic, let's say on the Amazon.com website. And in some cases, when you have large customers, especially in AWS, you talk directly to customers through the account managers. And the nature of B2B products is that a lot of time customers tell you exactly what their pain point is, exactly what you want that they want. And so in some ways, B2B product management is a little bit simpler than B2C. So you talk directly to them. In some cases, for example, right, I'm in a new initiative right now and we don't have any customers. So we do a lot of like focus group sessions, or we will sign confidentiality agreements with some potential customers. We'll go and talk to them and we'll just try to understand what their current pain points are. Those are the main ways in which we directly talk to customers, but there are other ways as well. Like you have, I'm thinking about, like, think about Alexa. No customer said that they want a voice assistant. This is something that Amazon came up with. How did Amazon come up with that? What kind of customer research happened in that case? And it kind of goes back to the idea of doing a very iterative development. So a lot of times, Amazon would just decide that, hey, we have a hunch. We have a hunch that this project can work and this should work. So let's just build something out there and put it in hands of customers. Really like how startups operate in a lot of ways. So they'll build a product. Nobody knows about it. Not even many customers would know it, but Amazon would say, like, okay, now let's just build something small and run a private beta, or run like a small kind of control group experiment. And from there, it'll iterate from there. So these are some of the ways in which we try to get customer feedback.
Sure. Thanks for that. The next one, which I said is slightly off the core topic, but yeah, I'm just using this opportunity to connect face-to-face with a senior product manager from Amazon. So what is it that you look for in a product manager at Amazon? Sorry, what does Amazon look for in a product manager?
Well, there are a lot of things. Like, of course, when you interview for PM roles in other companies, any company would look for a certain level of skill sets, your communication skills, your product thinking skills, your strategic analytical skills. One thing that Amazon emphasizes a lot is some of your past experiences. So we'll ask a lot of behavioral questions. And the reason for that is that we believe in Amazon that, your past experience is a predictor of your future success, the past behaviors that you have displayed. And we'd want to understand in past what kind of projects you have worked on. Even sometimes if they are not product related, how did you handle those ambiguous situations? Sometimes it's okay not to have done, complex things that are very complex scales. But even in simpler situations, how did you manage a conflict? How did you align different people to your way of thinking? Or how did you understood a customer's need when customers were not even talking about them? So Amazon would try to map these behavioral traits with their own leadership principles, and alignment with those leadership principles is super important. Like, if you don't have any product skills, but you have alignment with leadership principles, Amazon might still consider you. Maybe not for PM role immediately, maybe, but for some other role. But if you have everything, all great product thinking skills and analytical skills, but you don't have stories that align with Amazon's leadership principles, you'll not be able to get inside. So I think alignment with that leadership principles through your past experiences is the most important thing.